Recently I've been coming to terms with the fact that my 20s are coming to an end. I know that some people would say it's just a number, and to a degree I would say that too. But I will admit it's definitely got me thinking about the last 10 years, the ups and the downs, and what I'd do differently given the chance. At 20 years old I was pretty clueless. I worked at a supermarket, drank at the weekends, and didn't have too much direction in my life. But over the last decade, I've grown a crazy amount, and even though it didn't feel like it at the time, I was slowly embarking on a journey which led me to experience some incredible adventures, forge long relationships with great people, and even turn my hobby into a career. Overall, I would call this time a success. However, knowing what I do now, there's definitely a few standout lessons that would have been really valuable if I'd known them a little bit younger. So here are 5 lessons that I've learned from my 20s. If implemented, I think these could be really useful. So the first lesson would be take on responsibility and take action. I feel like for the start of my 20s, I spent a lot of time waiting on others to provide me with an opportunity. And then when it didn't arrive, my reaction was that things just weren't fair, or maybe it just wasn't meant to be. However, later on in my 20s, I soon realized that nobody else is going to come to save you. And if you want something, you're going to have to go and get it. This can relate to so many different things, but for me, it was perfectly shown when I got my first job in the creative industry. I had no creative or artistic background, but something just clicked in me when I realized, nobody's going to give me a chance unless I've got proof or a portfolio. After working that out, I had 2 years of just non-stop practicing at the weekends and the evenings, just doing everything off my own back, looking at things on YouTube, trying to learn as much as I could, and eventually I landed a job in a creative studio, all without any relevant qualifications or experience in the industry, just a portfolio and proof that I was serious about it. Some would say that I'm lucky, but I believe that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. The next thing that I've learned is to be your authentic self. I remember being so wrapped up in thinking about what other people thought of me to the point where I was wearing branded clothing that I didn't even like. Fast forward to now, I own 5 identical black plain t-shirts and effectively just wear them for everything. And that mindset isn't just exclusive to questionable outfits, but instead, you just never quite feel comfortable in your own skin. Looking back now, I can't help but think if I would have been able to fully lean into who I am and what I'm into, I think day to day, I just would have felt a lot more relaxed. Now, this definitely could just be something that you have to learn with age, but I think if you learn this young, it's going to be great and will definitely save you a lot of stress. Number 3 is to just go outside more. The average person in the UK will spend 90% of their life indoors. I don't know about you, but I find that statistic quite scary. If you've seen any of my videos before, then you've probably noticed that I love some great scenery and a good forest, but it hasn't always been that way. I thought I always appreciated nature before, but definitely not on the level that I do now. I think going on walks in nature throughout the lockdowns of 2020 really helped me to see the mental benefit of being outside, with fresh air and not being constantly bombarded by technology. I don't think I've ever been for a 30-minute walk and then got back and felt worse for it. It's literally always an improvement. Most of my creative ideas actually come from walks in nature and just being outside, so yeah, whether it's for the mind or the body, it's just good to get outside. Looking back on the first half of my 20s, this is definitely something that I neglected. So yeah, if I could go back, I'd spend a lot more time in nature. The 4th thing is to prioritize your fitness. I know it's really easy to just simply chuck around the advice that everyone should get fit, but I honestly think it really is that important. We often think about the state of our mind and how we feel, but the body in which our mind has to live in is just as important. Not only will it pay off down the line when you're older, but even in the moment, working out can provide a feeling like no other. So many of us spend a crazy amount of time sat at a desk these days, and for me there's nothing better than blowing off the cobwebs with a workout after hours of being sat down and staring at a screen. And just like I said about going for a walk, whenever I leave the gym, I'm mentally in a much better place than when I arrived. Fitness has helped me in so many different ways, whether it's given me more confidence day to day, helping me be better at my job and enabling me to meet new friends as well. I would absolutely recommend that anyone who's looking for a community that's based around something that's good for you to consider joining up to a gym or somewhere that runs classes. And of course, it doesn't need to revolve around weightlifting. It could be something totally different like yoga or bouldering, essentially just something that gets your body moving. Fitness has been a huge part of my 20s, and I think looking forwards, it's going to be a massive part of my 30s. And the last point is having your personal finances in check. Whether it's the peace of mind of not worrying about what could happen if your car lets you down, or just being able to indulge in traveling, having a good amount of savings behind you can not only make your life easier, but it gives you one less thing to feel stressed about. First things first, I'm definitely not a financial expert, so please do your own research before you decide to do anything with your money. And of course, everybody's circumstances are different. This is just kind of what worked for me. Now, I'm definitely not saying you need to be so frugal to the point where you're not actually enjoying your life, but from experience, putting in that hard graft in your early 20s can really transform the years that follow. So my money-making superpower was essentially to stay at home with my family for longer than most typically would. And in that time, I would try and put the majority of my month's paychecks straight into my savings, and yeah, I did that for around about a year or so. I can't fully explain how much better I felt once I had that buffer in my bank account. Honestly, it just made everything feel so much easier and actually enabled me to take a few more risks. So my advice to someone younger who's still at home would absolutely be put in that hard work for a year or so and build up that cushion in your bank account. It can honestly make life feel so much smoother. When it comes to investing, again, I didn't start until I was about 26, annoyingly, but honestly, it has been really good, and I definitely believe it's a good habit to get into. It just works in the background and you often forget all about it. I really think it's one of those things that I'll get to my older years and just look back and be really happy that I started. So for me, every month I put a small amount into the S&P 500 and a few other index funds, and yeah, just let it do its thing. Again, I kind of started quite late with this, so thinking what could have been if I'd started at 18 with all that compound interest, but yeah, I just didn't know about these things, but thankfully I do now. As much as I wish that I'd learnt a lot of these lessons sooner, I'm just glad that I eventually did, and it set me up pretty well for the next chapter, the 30s. So to recap, taking responsibility, being yourself, getting into nature, looking after your body, and being on top of your finances. In my opinion, anyone that manages to tick off these boxes in their 20s is going to put themselves in a really strong position. So coming up with the idea for this video and sort of writing about it and thinking about it more and more, yeah, it kind of prompted me to come out here and try and get fit and to be in nature again. And yeah, just like exactly what I talk about in the video, like, it just works. So yeah, if you're thinking about making a change or trying to get better consistency when it comes to these things, you just got to do it, got to take action, and yeah, do the thing that you want to do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.